This is the Broodcast on Poets at War, Inkling-style Discord chat, last Friday of every month. And now, the Broodcast.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you fine.
Cool. For some reason, it's coming in fairly low on my computer. Is it sounding distorted at all or no?
No,
Okay.
not
cool.
sounding distorted at all.
All right. Fair enough. Oh, so what you got going on?
Well, I'm thinking that at least for the beginning part of Broodcast, I'll be digging a hole.
Ah, you are a dwarf and you're digging a hole, diggy, diggy hole. You know
Yes.
that song?
Yes, I do. I love it. It is. I'm not sure that it is my sister Anna. You've met her.
Yes.
On here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that it's her favorite song, but it's definitely one of her favorite songs.
Very nice.
She's often, because I found it on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
the Clemivi version.
Yeah.
And played it for her, and so she'll go around the house singing, "I am a dwarf and I'm digging a hole."
You've heard
It's great.
You've heard the Windrose version, right?
I'm not sure that I have.
You should look it up. It's heavy metal. It's really good.
Okay.
Their whole gimmick is dwarvish metal. Like that's
Okay.
their thing. So I think
Yes.
them.
I've heard of Windrose.
Okay.
Now that you say that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah. What have you been up to?
Well, G3. Trying to get back to somewhat normal after G3. Yesterday was the first day I got all my stuff done.
Okay.
We have to because of the sign, we're going to have to overhaul / completely reset and reorganize the church's network.
Okay.
So that's lame.
Yeah. So by reset the network, what do you mean? Is that going to be something they have to interface with the company with?
No, we cannot get into our firmware on the router.
Okay.
Because the person who installed it, when they installed it, either put a password or installed something that already had a password of some kind, and we don't have it and he doesn't have it. So
I'm assuming you've already checked the default password?
Yes, we've checked all possible default passwords and looked on company websites and all that fun stuff.
So you need a new router.
Yeah, well, not just router. It's a little bit more complicated of a network than that. So
okay.
Yeah, it's got several switches and it's not super complicated. It's more than just a router. And so basically, regardless, we're going to have to be able to get in and set aside some very static IP addresses for very specific things, because essentially the reason that we can't change the sign is because one of our security cameras has decided that it wants that IP address. So, yeah.
Fun.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The ceaseless entertainment coming from electronics not behaving the way that they're supposed to.
Exactly. So,
yeah.
The last two people who installed and worked on the network at the church are, well, one of them we were able to get a hold of recently, but he works in stuff around town. The other guy is just straight MIA, like the original guy who installed everything.
Yeah.
And so basically, like, yeah. So what's the purpose of the hole?
Fun. Well, we're thinking that it's going to be a root cellar.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But this is Oklahoma clay, so it's kind of tougher to dig through than most dirt.
Right.
But yeah, it'll be fun whenever it's done.
I'm playing around.
It's gonna be pretty big.
Yeah.
It's gonna be pretty big. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm let's see here. I am playing around with using the focus view on this one.
okay? One sec, I'll get over there.
Well, I mean, you're not gonna see it. This is the way I'm viewing it for recording purposes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm playing around with using the focus view because I'm getting really tired of doing Poets at War the way I'm doing it, even beyond Broodcast. And I think if I chop off the sidebar and essentially like just work on the area where all the people are, and have it in focus mode as opposed to the other, it might work out. But I'm seeing that it doesn't change back to me when I'm talking, and I'm wondering if there's a way I can change that.
I don't believe there is. Do you have another computer that you could jump into the Brood on that's a recording computer? Because that might be a decent workaround.
Yeah. It is, but it isn't. So maybe, potentially in the future, I can try that. But tonight, no. We'll just go with it.
Yeah.
I'll be tiny.
Yeah.
But
I was noticing watching the last, I think it was Poets at War, that we're not able to utilize the higher recording resolution or higher streaming resolution because it's just a screen capture on the YouTube video, at least.
Correct. I don't think Discord has any other stuff, but it does look better. That's the other thing. It looks better than the other one we had.
Yeah.
So, good evening, Wilsons.
Hello.
How we doing? You'll get it. Oh, okay. You were doing the immigrant song. Okay, I got you. How we doing, man?
Pretty good today.
Good to see you.
Good.
And now it's
digging
not
a hole.
popping up his
Alex
is digging a hole. I'm trying to see. It looks like it's on manual switching for the view instead of automatic. Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Apparently.
What are you digging a hole for?
Thinking it's gonna be a root cellar.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering if you were digging your own grave or something.
No. Not yet, at least.
Oh boy.
That was morbid.
How long have you known me? Wow, that is some red dirt.
That is some very red dirt.
That's really red dirt. It's way redder than the dirt around here.
Where do you think bricks come from?
The rich folk.
Oh, hey. It's a piece of dirt.
That is wet red dirt.
That's the kind of stuff we have down here too, except further west. Like, we still have red clay here, but it's all underneath sand in Augusta because we're just close enough to the coast that it's all sand, but you still have to drive 3 hours to the beach. So
nice. All of the downsides, none of the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because that part of the earth was submerged at one point.
Oh, no. Say it isn't so. Is there possibly a book I could read that documents how this happened?
Yes. It's called Genesis.
The Phil Collins Band? Is that an autobiography? Or is it about that Sega system?
Are you recording
decent
right
system.
now?
Yeah. I mean, I just turn it on, but it's not going to necessarily be in here. I can cut it wherever.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was just waiting for other people to show up, before I start yammering. But I was listening to. I've been binge listening to Haunted Cosmos.
I figured you would. You got past the background music, huh?
Yeah, well, it still irritates me, but those guys are just so engaging that I can kind of tune it out.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So where are you on it?
I just finished the Mothman one, and no, he was talking about the Hat Man,
Oh yes.
and then and now he's talking about giants,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
it's like the guy has been thinking the stuff that I've been thinking for like the last 2 years. And it's
Yep.
just interesting to hear my thoughts out of his mouth.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I've had that experience.
Well, I think I'm gonna stick with the grid because this is, for some reason, like I said, just it's wanting to switch manually and not automatically. I've never seen that. It always was automatic.
It's so weird.
Yeah. Anyway, just talking about camera stuff. I'm trying to play with things, but yeah. No, it's a great podcast, man. I really enjoy what they do. Brian Sauvé is an amazing musician too.
He is.
And a pastor. And yeah, he's just a cool dude.
I think he got recommended as, like, you might know this person on Facebook or Twitter. I can't remember which. I was like,
Probably
oh,
Twitter.
This guy, oh, probably Twitter. I was just, oh, this guy looks interesting, and then moved on with my life. But, but I didn't know that he did this podcast, so that was fun.
Yep. He does several. None of them are as good as Haunted Cosmos, but I enjoy some of the stuff. He has one with his wife. That's Bright Hearth.
I love Bright Hearth. Yeah.
Yeah, Bright Hearth, and then
King's Hall is the other one.
King's Hall. Yeah, I've only listened to one of King's Hall. I haven't really grasped it yet. But
personally, King's Hall is my favorite. There's a couple of things that they've talked about on there that I'm like, but most of it is just really great.
Right. What is the point of King's Hall? I haven't nailed that down yet in my brain.
So the first season was diagnosing the problems with the modern evangelical church.
Mm-hmm.
And so they talked about the big, fast, and famous model, what they called it. Talked about...
I'd like to hear more about that.
Big, fast, yeah.
Later, but finish what you were saying.
Yeah. Talked about that, talked about the problems in worship music, talked about just basically all of the problems of the modern evangelical church at length, because they're, hour and a half to 2 hour long podcasts. And they did like 18 of them in the first season.
Oh,
and so it's just a takedown of, these are all the problems. This is what the historic solution has been. This is what this is what we're trying to do at Refuge.
So is it their Knox Unplugged, but without, Knox or whatever, basically?
Not really. It's a lot more focused than Knox Unplugged.
Okay. Gotcha.
I do not say that as a knock against Knox Unplugged. I love that podcast, but they're a lot more intentional about what they're talking about.
Right. And
they don't get onto rabbit trails as much.
That's another one you'd really like, Ian, Knox Unplugged. It started as this guy who's gone by Chocolate Knox on Twitter forever. He's this black guy who loves John Knox and whatever else.
Oh, yeah. I've run into him.
Yeah. So he, like, a few years ago, was really having some crazy stuff going on or whatever, and it was started asking and talking to a friend named Jason Farley who lives in Spokane. Knox is in Moscow, Idaho. This Jason Farley guy, he's just sort of like this weird jolly guru. But he's
incredible.
He's incredibly I say guru, he's Christian, but the thing is he is the single, except for maybe Brendan's dad, who actually was like, an academic professor of the topic. I've never met anyone besides Jason Farley who is more knowledgeable about the medievals and about like the cosmology of the medievals, particularly.
I got into him too.
Yeah. And so basically Jason Farley started talking to Knox and and Knox realized through talking to him that he had incredibly Gnostic tendencies that he didn't even realize were there. And it basically kind of became Knox's therapy to get out of Gnosticism and into a Christian cosmology.
Yep.
And so
I couldn't explain it better.
And so basically, like, now they just talk every week or so for almost 3 hours, and like are deep diving into philosophy, cosmology, like the really like Lewis-y, Tolkien-y, Chestertonian deep dive stuff about how God made the world, anthropology, what people are for, what the institutions are for, all that other kind of stuff. Just really good stuff. I think you'd like that one too. And it's rambly because it's just two guys having a conversation, you know?
Yeah. Which makes it difficult to recommend to people because they can't jump in at any point in time. You have to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to,
it's just
but
40 podcast. It's just 40 podcasts of a continuing conversation.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Do you remember the Trans Baptist controversy last year? When some guy on Cross Politics said that Baptist theology causes transgenderism?
I don't remember that. I would think I would remember.
You don't.
That.
You don't remember
Well,
it? Okay.
It happened. It happened last year, and the guy on Cross Politic was Jason Farley, and the reason everybody got up in arms about it was because he was continuing the conversation from Knox Unplugged. There was like 72 hours in the making, and everybody picked up on the final point of a 72-hour long conversation and said, "That's wrong."
Yeah. So what he said was that Baptists essentially saying that you yourself, individual, have to choose your faith one day, sometime in the nebulous future, is why everyone's going, yeah, I don't want to be that. I want to be the opposite sex or whatever, right? Like, that was the point he was making on a cosmological basis, right? Like, the unmooring
of any ties outside of yourself and your desires or your wants or your choices is what laid the groundwork for transgenderism as we know it now, is basically his argument.
Okay.
So a lot of people got really upset.
That's understandable. I mean, I go to a church that does not baptize infants,
right?
So it's like, and as I said,
do I.
As I said in the group chat. Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
As I said in the group chat, I'm kind of on the fence on the issue because I've heard all the arguments for. I mean all of them for baptizing infants, and I've heard arguments against it. They're pretty convincing. I don't know if you're familiar. I really want you to have Dr. Gavin Ortland on your podcast at some point. I don't know if he'll actually respond to that, but I think you and he would have an interesting conversation. But Dr. Ortland he was Presbyterian. He's now Reformed Baptist.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because he couldn't find a compelling case for baptizing infants from church history.
Right. The only thing that I have, obviously I'm staunch, what I call Waco Baptist. I prefer that term over Paedo. Is that I do not see anywhere where the current concept of church membership continentally is very skewed from even the Reformation period of church membership or even the medieval form of church membership. What it means to be a member of the church beyond, whatever. And so I think that before we have any conversation about baptism, we have to detach it from church membership and figure that situation out, because I think that's the thing with Baptist churches. that ends up becoming like contentious is actually how hard they connect to the two, membership but it's American membership. It's modern 21st century membership, right? It's not medieval membership and baptism.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
That's like that's a whole different discussion right there.
Right. But that's the thing that I think is gumming up the works in many cases, because you could make the claim for a credo baptism in the mode of the 6th century Roman Catholic Church, and say that's what they were doing to a certain extent, right? Even though they would baptize infants, there was clear understanding of, confirmation and whatever else. And, there's this basically, like, Baptists just tied the whole thing into baptism. And I'm like, okay, what is church membership? If we don't know what church membership is, how can we say it's tied to baptism?
Yeah.
Right? So that's my whole thing. I think we need to have a better understanding of what church membership means in our current geopolitical context, because it was so tied to your country and your king and all the other things in the previous eras. So what does it mean now? What has changed? What does the Bible say about membership in not just the local church, but the church abroad? How open should the table be to the church abroad, considering all the crazy denominational splits and whatever else? And that's one of the reasons I really like the CREC, because they baptize both modes, credo and credo or pedo. I'm saying both modes as in like the two main ones, the sprinkling and the immersion, right? They also allow Baptists or Presbyterians into their membership, as far as that's considered. They their eldership has to be all on the same page on the individual church level, whether pedo or credo. But essentially, they pick a creed for their church, or maybe a few secondary ones for members, right? And they hold people to those creeds. I say creeds, I mean confessions, like Westminster or London Baptist, etc. And so, like, that whole situation has brought a lot of fruit, because it allows for the individual conscience within the bounds of Scripture to say, this is what I believe, right? And so I've been fascinated in watching that. But yeah, I think the real question comes down to ecclesiology more than it does when you get the kid wet. What is the church?
Watching the Oklahoman here, thinking, I am a dwarf and I live in a
I said
hole.
that earlier before y'all were here.
Diggy, diggy hole. Diggy, diggy hole. Yep.
Classic.
I'm sorry, I just had to share that.
He hasn't heard the Windrose version yet, Ian.
Oh man.
I've heard the original, and I've heard the Clamavi version.
Clamavi de Profundis. Yeah.
Just loves that band.
I do.
They're awesome. They are.
I've been on a
They're great.
I've been listening to a lot of power metal recently.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of Rhapsody of Fire. I don't know if you've heard them.
What's that?
No.
Rhapsody of Fire. They sing about dragons and unicorns and stuff. It's rad.
Never heard of them.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
You'll have to share some
That
later.
was my introduction to power metal.
Mm.
My dad bought their CD. He saw them on
PBS. It was
PBS.
PBS.
He saw them on PBS, and he was like, "Whoa!" And he bought their album when I was a kid, and that was my introduction to power metal, and I've been kind of addicted ever since.
Nice. I was gonna ask, or I was gonna say mine. Even though I've always known power metal to exist, pretty much, just because it was always in kids' cartoons and whatever else, Lampooned and whatever else. I think my real first band that I wouldn't classify Dragon Force as that, but they're close. They're more speed metal. But they've got the power metal vocals, and I fell in love with Dragon Force's power metal vocals. I don't think it was Guitar Hero. I think I knew about them like just before Guitar Hero. And then Manowar was my real actual first power metal band, and I love Manowar.
Yeah, you shared some of their songs in the group chat.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I like their lyrics and simple melodies, and they like the marching beat, and I really like slow marching beat, and I really like that. So
yeah, I like Rhapsody of Fire, Nightwish. Nightwish is probably my favorite band of all time.
Mm-hmm.
They're so good.
You and Brendan both love Nightwish.
They were until they're kind of falling apart now, but they're just so good. There's that one song. It's probably one of my favorite songs. I Want My Tears Back. It's an amazing song. I mean, I get choked up when I listen to it, which is kind of weird to say. Getting choked up listening to a heavy metal song.
No, not at all. Not at all. I have gotten teared up listening to Courage by Manowar. I don't know if you've heard the song Courage, but that one's awesome. I need to listen to that one. And you hit that.
I need to listen to more Manowar. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're just fun. I think the three songs that really like wrote me in for sure with them were Warriors of the World United, which everyone kind of knows.
Heard that one.
Courage, which is a power ballad. It's really good. It's kind of in the vein of like, it reminds me a lot in just the general vibe of I Can Go the Distance from Hercules.
Oh.
And then the other one is a very slow, dark, just like basically like Chat GPT written, even though it wasn't before Chat GPT, walk through the Odinite aesthetic, and it's called Swords in the Wind, and that one's really, really good. I will lead the charge, my sword into the wind. Sons of Odin fight to die and live again. Viking ships cross the sea in cold wind and rain, sail into the black of night. Magic stars are guiding light. All that good stuff. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. The other night, last night while I was washing dishes, I was listening to Wolf Tooth.
Mm-hmm.
They're more like Black Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, the vocals are more. The vocalist sounds a lot more like Ozzy than anybody else.
Right.
And they're kind of music that you listen to while you're going out to crush your enemies. They're like really heavy.
Yeah. Well, we've waited around a fair amount. Not seeing anyone else coming in yet. So if this ends up being it, that's fine. Did everyone bring something to look at or no?
I did.
You did? Wonderful.
I did too.
Wonderful. Brett, Alex?
I have something.
Wonderful. Okay. I read recently the Shadowlash poem from Worldwide Warrior. I think y'all were here for that, all of y'all. Ian, you may or may not have been. But I read it live, and I'm really, really happy with the way the audio turned out. So I was gonna throw it all y'all's way, and have you listen to it, and I'll just plop it in to the podcast in post before I upload it, so that people can hear it. But I really wanted to share that because it's just a really cool chapter, and I was really happy with how the audio came out. I'm using a AI voice changer, so it's still my voice on some of the characters. But it sounds like something else. Alex has heard it. He thinks it's pretty good. So, the fact that it's a voice changer instead of just, going text to speech and giving me random takes and whatever else is so much better because I can still perform the characters. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But, okay. Well, who wants to start?
Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Guess you start.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Why not? Okay.
One eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Go for it.
All right. Let me get a Dropbox link, and y'all can mute and listen to it. And once everyone's listened to it, we can just come back for any thoughts, kind of thing.
Where is it?
Got it.
Let me see here. Oh, do you already have it? Or no? Okay. I thought you were saying you had it.
No.
Have you listened to it already, Alex?
I have not listened to this one. No.
Okay. Let me go ahead and grab it. Taking just a moment. Okay, videos. It's fairly recent, so okay. Copy, link. Let's bring up the chat. Let me see. There's the chat button. And you guys should be able to pull that up. Ian, if you need me to message it directly
Where
to
did
you,
you
I
put?
will.
Oh, there it is.
In the Broodcast chat thing.
Yeah,
You see that there?
got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Muting.
Okay, you guys can mute and listen.
I'm trying to find it. Poets and War.
I'll send it to you on Facebook, man.
No. I'll find it in here. Just
Okay.
give me a sec.
There's a chat button that is part of like your settings for the screen. Basically, it's I believe in the upper right corner. If you go to the upper right corner, the
oh, there it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go. Yeah. You got it. All right. Oh, Brendan's here. Brendan, we're about to listen to something I just put in the chat. You can throw ears on for that if you want. Then people are going to react. It's just my thing that I'm sharing. Good to see you, by the way.
6. Shadow Lash. The following morning, breakfast smells wafted all through the silversmith house. Braden's bruised and broken body stirred, and he twitched his nose like a mouse. Ham and egg, potatoes and cheese. Yes, he was ready for this. He pulled his long hair out of his face. He stood up and nearly missed. His legs wobbled under him as he went downstairs, his body craving carbs and protein. He sat down at the table and thought to himself, I'm so hungry I might just scream. Luckily for Braden, he didn't have to. Rayan brought a dish right in. It had wonderful thick pieces of bacon on it and cheese and eggs within. Breakfast casserole, Braden beamed with contentment. I am so ready for food.
Wait, not yet.
Rayan set the dish down.
Don't be so hasty and rude.
Braden frowned for just a moment, but then Rayan produced a black blade. He didn't see from where she got it, but his stomach rumblings were grave. Is that a tomahawk? He asked with a smile. You know it's not my birthday yet.
I know, Braden. I'm giving it to you now because if I don't, it'll get lost in a minute. Every year it's the same story. You go out with all your friends.
Well, thanks for the tomahawk, Grandma. Then he asked for breakfast again.
Would you wait for just a few seconds? This isn't an ordinary hadget. It's been passed down through our family and has a story attached to it.
Braden relented and sat back to listen, but his mind within him said, by the time she finishes this family story, Jonathan will be awake and I'll be dead.
A long time ago in Georgia, before it was called a state, our Cherokee ancestor ruled Standing Peachtree, and he was a chief that was great. Dekataga was his name. He led his people well, and he especially kept his countrymen safe from black magic, powers, and spells. Once there was a sinful witch, Harbingela by name, who happened across Dekataga's braves, who arrested her for her shame. They brought her before the chief, and she begged for her life. And even though she bribed the chief, her heart still clung to spite.
Chief Dekataga,
she quaintly cooed,
please forgive me of my magic's rude. I am but a poor, wretched soul, but I have a gift that is worthy of your role. If you will accept this, promise will I, to leave this forest forever and never again on you spy.
The chief thought through this for a minute or two. All the witch had to say. It's true her power had waned a lot, and mercy was his heart's way. He agreed to the gift, and she thanked him well, with a new tomahawk and a magic spell. But merely a week later, Harbingula was found again, and nothing could stop Degataga's braves or the many men who came from all over the world to end the witch queen Harbingula and all their fury spend. Harbingula was sealed away, but the tomahawk remains. It has been passed down from firstborn to firstborn, and here it passes again. It was passed from my mother Salali to your uncle Nahari. He died in Vietnam, and so it passed to me. I passed it to your father, but Django's lost or gone. Now it passes to you, Brayden, my eldest and only grandson.
Rayan saw the quizzical look forming in Brayden's eyes. She took the blade from off the table and smiled in a way that was wry. She grabbed a fork from off the table and crossed to the tomahawk's shaft with the handle of the fork, and she spoke 2 words of craft.
Fork, mutatio,
was all she need say, and the tomahawk turned into a fork right away. It was black like before, with a little blue stripe, not just like the silver fork, but black as darkest night. Rayan pulled the forks apart and said 1 word again.
Mutatio,
she said in a clear voice, and the fork form met its end. The black tomahawk with pale blue stripe, Brayden saw suddenly in another light. Rayan held it out, and Brayden took it in hand. This is unbelievable.
treasure it.
Yes, ma'am. I'd never dream of pawning this for cash.
The name of the tomahawk is Shadowlash, and whenever you would want to have a fork again, hold it in your hand and speak these words, Brayden. Fork, then mutatio. It needn't be crossed. The tomahawk stores that information for whenever you're lost. You can copy any inanimate object that you can hold in your hands, and call it back at any time.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So I cross it with whatever I want to copy and name it and tell it to change? That's what mutatio means, right?
You've got it.
Wow. This is strange. He put the tomahawk on the table, and the two of them embraced. Then Rayan began to serve Brayden with a smile and with grace. Meanwhile, the sleepy-headed Jonathan zombie walked down the stairs, his head a tangle of interwoven locks. Dude, nice hair.
Imagine if you had everything Tolkien ever wrote. Well, you can't have his, but you can have mine. The Ling Lyricanium is $10 a month, and you can find it at joshuadavidling.com/LL. That's joshuadavidling.com/LL.
He is a dwarf, and he's digging a hole.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you doing? Being in the pit of despair or something?
Where were we? Ah, yes, the pit of despair. It's too bright for that.
Okay, I just finished. I like the background music a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's helpful or not.
It is. It was timed well with everything, I think. I was pretty pleased with that.
I agree.
Yeah, you have a good choice of background music. You read this last week, I'm pretty sure.
I did, but I was just showing off the audio because I thought it was particularly good. This is one of the ones on audio that I was just really, really pleased with how it turned out, because the story moments are so important to the building of the characters, and I after listening to it could feel the warmth that I tried to put into it, and that has happened in smaller amounts before for me, but not nearly as much as this. This relationship is a combination of me and my mom's relationship, me and my grandmother's relationship, her mom, and then also there's a woman who I kind of took over her job and held it in limbo for a while at Publix when I worked there. Her name was Maria, and she adopted me as her grandson, you know. And she had cancer, and had to be off for like a year. And the only reason she was able to go back to her job was because I basically stood in the gap for her job for like that year. And so we had a very special bond through all of that. So, but anyway, so like I could feel everything that I put into it come out of it when I listened to it. And that was just really exciting for me. But
I agree. I definitely felt the characters, and I thought that the AI voice worked really well.
It's not perfect, but
worked really well.
But it's a lot better than not having it, I feel like, you know?
Yep. The only thing that I caught where it said something that was not what the word was whenever the chief thinks it over for a minute, the AI said minute.
Okay, gotcha.
With an SH sound. So
gotcha.
That's the only place where I caught that it said something that was not the correct thing.
Right. Other thoughts?
Everything he said.
Sounds good. How are you, Brendan?
Oh yeah, hello.
Hello, I am exhausted.
1819.
Kind of.
That's the show he works on. Just so people know.
Part of it is work. Part of it is that the baby decided he was going to wake up at 1:30 in the morning, and then woke up at 6:30 in the morning, and I was the one to take him both times after Kirith fed him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Peter woke up and chose violence too today. I don't know what's going on with that.
Well, I'm gonna blame. This is gonna sound weird, but I'm gonna blame it on the full moon.
There you go.
I literally am,
I believe you.
Have been known to be in a poor temper on the full moon.
You're in a great mood tonight, though.
Well, the full moon is past, and I've taken anti-inflammatory, so I'm fine.
There you go.
No, I'm raring to go. I'm full of what?
Vim and vinegar.
Yeah, don't ask that question.
Full of it. I'm full of vim and vinegar. Vim and vinegar.
Yeah,
that sounds like a great band name.
Okay.
Vim and vinegar.
Vim and vinegar.
Or like a duet, you know, like a duo.
Please.
That would be a great band inside of a fictional story.
There you go.
Like your main character's favorite band is Vim and Vinegar.
There you go. I like it.
I can hear that now, like a folk punk blend.
There you go.
Dad says make it a trio and have Vim, Vigor, and Vitality.
There you go. Now they're just all folk, but with like an attitude.
Yeah.
No. It's a folk metal band.
There you go.
Oh,
classic.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I discovered a folk punk band a little while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't surprise me that it exists, but the phrase folk punk confuses me mentally.
It's actually really good. They're primarily folk, but they have some of the vocal stylization of punk.
That makes sense.
I say as a person who does not know punk at all in any way, shape, or form.
All I could say is
I could be misdiagnosing.
All I can say is you can basically like take Mr. Folk Bob Dylan and call his vocals anything you want.
A rabid duck with pneumonia.
Yeah, there you go.
I do not deny that Bob Dylan is a great songwriter. He should not sing his music.
100%.
One of my friends, actually a guy I'm going to talk about in a minute, said that punk, if you're just starting out as a musician, you should get into punk because you need basically no talent.
It's true. It's true.
Oh.
Well, you can fake it till you make it in punk, is what his point was.
Then you can graduate. Then you can graduate to pop punk.
Yes,
because pop punk is actually a little bit harder to play than just straight punk.
Yeah,
because you actually have to have a little bit of polish.
No, guys, we got it wrong. If you have no talent and you want to get into music, you have to play CCM.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes.
That is CCM that is not from the 80s or 90s, or especially not Stephen Curtis Chapman, because some of his stuff is actually kind of hard. And then forget Rich Mullins. I doubt any of the musicians in our group can play everything Rich Mullins has in any kind of way. His stuff is good.
Michael Card, Michael W. Smith,
Phil Kagi.
Mm-hmm.
John Michael Talbot. Kemper Crab.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I listen. My son might have woken up and chose Loud Joy at. Oh, actually, hold on. No, there's a Bible verse. I can't remember where it is.
Yep, I think Proverbs. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
It says, "He who rises
early in the morning with a greeting,
with a loud greeting will be counted as cursing."
Yes.
Or something like that. So he was rising with a loud greeting in the morning. I woke up and chose violence, apparently. So
yeah, the Lord has been keeping me in Proverbs for 4 months, 5 months, something like that. He just it's like he said, son, your life is a train wreck. You need to be in this book right now.
Proverbs is good because it's basically like you can graduate out of doom scrolling on Twitter and doom scroll in Proverbs.
That is amazing. You need to clip that for shorts.
It's true though, and then
include that comment about clipping it for shorts in the shorts.
It is so good, man. It's just like advice that you'd want to get from your father, and
man, it's almost like the book was written from the perspective of his dad going to his son. No, I kid. But you're right.
And one chapter is a mom to a son.
Yeah, there's that one chapter, but it's like the church fathers. I like to quote them a lot because we're really smart guys. They didn't get everything right, but they were really smart guys.
Oh yeah.
They believed, but the way that they read Proverbs was basically the words of the pre-incarnate Christ. Because at the beginning of the book it says, the words of Solomon, peace, was the Prince of Peace, Christ. King of Israel was the King of Israel, Christ. Son of David was the Son of David, Christ. That's how they read it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know, right? It completely changed how I read the book now. I mean, that's how divine inspiration works, but it just had never had it explained to me in that way.
Well, our pastor at our church is going through the psalm of we just finished the first book of the Psalm.
Oh,
and his point is whenever you hear a Psalm of David, you should be thinking of that as the voice of Christ, because Christ is the son of David. And so whenever there is a Psalm of David, the voice in that psalm is both David himself and Jesus.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so his point is like, you can't, because now I disagree with my pastor on many things. This is probably not a wise thing for me to admit on a Christian artists group chat thing. But one of the things he says one of the things he says is that, like, you know, we should need to be careful not to, like, when we pray in precatory psalms, how can we pray like some of these things where it's talking about my enemies are around me, my foes are within. It was like, well, since most of them were Psalms of David, we can sing these things with Christ,
Right.
so that we are, going through that whole process. I'm sitting here going, we could also just, sing them as ourselves toward people who we think are evil.
Let's
and if
do
we're
both.
wrong, well, if we're wrong, then we're wrong, and we'll burn that bridge when we get there.
If we're wrong, then we temper it with the passage where he says, "Love your enemy and bless those who persecute you." But it needs to be a mix of both.
Yeah, or read Proverbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been doing a practice the past, month or so. I read imprecatory psalms before bed every night because I've been under a lot of, I would say, demonic oppression, or I had been at that point, and I pray them before bed every night, and it seems to have helped.
Good.
That'll do.
Well done.
Yep.
Amazing.
That's good stuff. 94 is my favorite. I love 94. That one is awesome.
Alex, I don't mean to tell you how to do what you're doing, but every time you swing the shovel upward, it looks like you're about to clock your dad in the head.
Thank you for watching up. Brendan says that every time I swing the shovel upward, it looks like I'm about to hit you in the head. I have relatively good spatial awareness. If I hit him in the head, then I will stop.
Well, yeah, no, I know you have. I know you have good spatial. I know you have good spatial awareness, and I know that there's foreshortening going on with this camera, but I'm just saying. And now Ian has become a table for TK, I guess.
Sorry, I was just moving a towel.
Oh.
Regarding what you were saying about disagreeing with your pastor, I am extremely fond of saying that I don't agree with anybody on anything, including myself.
Which is funny because every single time we're like Broodcast after hours, we're like going down some argument rabbit hole, and you end up completely agreeing with me. Oh boy.
I haven't found anything that I disagree with you yet.
He's still looking.
That's a brand, right?
So, any which way, who wants to be next in sharing? Brendan, do you have something to share, by the way, or no?
Ian wants to share. Ian wants to share next. I'll find out if I have something I want to share.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Ian, you're next, man. You have the floor.
I'm really excited to share this. I'm kind of nervous because this is rough. I literally just finished this in a week, which is the fastest I've ever written a comic book script in my life. This is based on a guy that I know from one of my other group chats, who he's a real person. He lives in Maine. He's a pizza delivery driver, and he keeps having these weird, like, paranormal experiences while he's delivering pizza. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I had a character who was a pizza delivery driver and also fights vampires and stuff on the side, and he just wants to deliver pizza, but these vampires and werewolves and demons keep getting in his way. So I created this character that's based loosely on this guy's life. He knows about it. He thinks it's awesome. So here we are, the adventures of Mike McGee. Act 1. Opening scene. Mike's bedroom. The room is dimly lit by a single window. It is decorated with nerdy posts, it's supposed to be posters, posters and baseball memorabilia. Mike is asleep in bed. He is a man in his mid-30s, slim-built with a goatee. Mike's alarm goes off. Mike rises from the bed and switches it off. Narrator, this is Mike. My name is Michael McGee, but you can call me Mike. I'm a nobody. One of the people who is pretty forgettable in the grand scheme of things. Mike gets out of bed and starts getting dressed for his day. He goes downstairs where his sister is getting ready for work. Narrator. I live in my grandparents' old house with my sister Janice and my nephew Jake. Janice. Morning, Mike. Mike. Morning. Mike grabs a donut and a cup of coffee and sits down at the table. Narrator. I live a pretty boring run-of-the-mill life, at least most of the time. I had my first encounter with weirdness when I was 12 years old. The scene changes to a flashback to 12-year-old Mike waking up in the middle of the night to a weird little kid standing at the foot of his bed. Mike, who are you? The kid's eyes turn black and it smiles, revealing long pointed teeth. Mike screams. Narrator. I've had a weird stuff happen to me ever since. It's only gotten worse since I moved to my late grandfather's house in Maine. I miss Vermont. Back to the present. Mike gets dressed for work, putting on his pizza delivery uniform. Narrator. I work as a pizza delivery driver. I warned you I was pretty average. Mike heads out the door. Mike. See you later, Janice. Janice. Bye, Mike. Mike heads to his old beat-up pickup truck. Close-up of the rosary hanging from his rear-view mirror. The guy that this is based on is actually Roman Catholic, so I wanted to include that detail. Mike starts the truck. It sputters before roaring to life. Mike drives to work. He meets his boss, a portly, balding man. Narrator. That's my boss, Pete Gordon. He's kind of a jerk. Pete. You're late. Mike. By 5 minutes. Pete. Whatever. You ready for the next run? Mike. Yeah. Mike takes the pizza bag, passing by another employee on his way to the truck. Now I'm going to include a little bit in here because I found out the guy that this is based on, Sean, is one of his co-workers is actually a witch. So I want to include that detail in here at some point in the second draft. Oliver. Hi, Mike. Narrator. That's Oliver. He's kind of a dork. Mike gets in his truck. Narrator. Another day, another struggle to stay sane, alive, and keep food on the table. Skip ahead to evening. Mike is on another delivery run. Narrator. This was just another boring day at work, but it was about to get a lot more interesting. Mike walks up the stairs to the apartment and rings the bell. A goth dude answers. The apartment is decorated in pentagrams and other satanic imagery. They appear to be performing some kind of ritual inside. Goth. Thanks, dude. The goth pays Mike, takes the pizzas, and goes back inside. Narrator. That was creepy, but honestly, that's not the first time I've walked in on an occult ritual. Mike crosses himself as he goes back to the car, muttering the Lord's Prayer. And Act 2. Mike returns to the shop after another delivery run. Narrator. Nothing really extraordinary happened for about a week after that. A few weird things, but they happen so often that it's almost beginning to be normal. Oliver. Hi, Mike. Ready for the next run? Mike. Ready as I'll ever be. Last one gave me a 50-cent tip and offered to roll me a joint. Which did actually happen, by the way. That's probably the truest part of this story. Oliver. Should have taken the joint. Mike. Ha ha. I need that like I need another concussion. The order receipt reads, order number 666. Narrator. Naturally. Believe it or not, this isn't the first time I've gotten order number 666. Coincidentally, it was the same address where I met the creepy goths a week prior. Mike walks up the stairs to the apartment. There's weird noises within. Mike, thinking, what the hell is going on in there? Mike rings the bell. There's more screaming and cursing within. Mike starts to sweat. Suddenly the door opens and out comes a hideous demonic face. Mike drops the pizza on the floor and screams. He runs down the stairs as fast as he can. The demon is on his heels. Pulling out his cross necklace, he whirls around and shoves it in the demon's face. The thing cowers before the cross. Mike, get back in the name of Jesus! Mike backs away toward his vehicle, holding the cross toward the demon. Mike gets in his truck, locks the doors, and starts the engine. Come on, start, damn you. The demon leaps on top of the truck and tries to pry the door open. Mike peels out onto the road. He stomps on the gas, swerving to get the demon off, but it holds on all the tighter. It scratches at the windows, trying to get into the vehicle. Mike reaches down under the seat and grabs his baseball bat. Narrator: I always keep a bat on hand for these situations. Baseball bats are made of ash wood, and demons don't like ash. It's also just as effective on crackheads. Mike opens the driver's side window and hits the demon in the face with the bat repeatedly until the thing lets go and tumbles onto the street. Police sirens blare behind him. Mike: oh crap. Mike pulls over and rolls down the window. Hello, officer. Officer: did you know how fast you were driving? Mike: in all honesty, no. I don't have any idea. Officer: why were you driving so fast? Mike: well, you're not going to believe this, but a demon attacked my car and I was trying to get him off. Narrator: I usually think honesty is the best policy, but maybe it was ill-advised in this case. I was expecting him to just give me a drug test and then and there, but weirdly, the opposite is what actually happened. Officer: was it that weird black critter that fell onto the road? Mike: yes, sir. Officer: yeah, I've seen weird crap like that around here too. I'm just gonna let you off with a warning. Mike sighs in relief. Officer: little tip, be sure and wash your car with holy water. Mike: thank you, sir. Narrator: I came home from work exhausted from the whole thing. Janice: what happened this time? Oh, you know, some idiot summoned a demon and it tried to kill me. Janice: yikes. Mike: yeah, I want a shower in holy water. Why the hell does this keep happening? Janice: it's like Mom said, bugs are attracted to light. Mike pours a glass of milk and grabs a couple of cookies. Mike: yeah, well, it'd be nice if my bulb would dim a little. Janice: it's gonna work out, Mike. Jesus has got you. Mike: I know. And that's it. As I said, it was rough, so don't judge me too harshly.
No promises.
Love it. By the way, I put you on speaker so Dad can hear you guys as well. Say hi, Dad.
Hi. Hello, sir.
Hello, hello.
Hey. So, it reminded me of, I can't think of his name. I can think of the character he plays, John Wick.
Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves, yeah, him. It reminded me of Keanu Reeves as Constantine a bit, like a less experienced Constantine. And I like
one of Sean's favorites.
There you go. I actually liked it quite a bit.
You sound surprised.
Well, I mean,
what's he saying?
Well,
I think Alex's dad is saying something.
Oh no, sorry. I really liked it too.
Is that what he said? Okay.
Can anything? No.
My thing is that, like, the one thing that I find a little odd is that every single character believes that he was attacked by demons. And I'm sure that's something you're going to expand on as the story reveals that actually this is super common and everyone just knows demons exist. But, like, right off the get-go, he seems like, oh, you're not going to believe this, officer, but I was attacked by demons. And the officer believes him. Then he goes home to his family, and his family believes him when he was attacked by demons. And that's like, I mean, that creates an interesting world, but it makes me wonder if he's ever going to have to struggle with getting people to believe him. And if so, how are you going to do that? Right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You could totally go and run, like run with the everyone knows demons exist and that they're like a common occurrence, or not common, but a semi-common. You could make that work really well. It's as somebody who sits in the sort of like who knows a bunch of tropes and stuff, it's a common trope that someone gets attacked by demons, people don't believe him. And then he has to prove it over the course of the story. But you're like, no, people know demons exist. So it's like, oh, okay, this is new. This is cool. This is interesting.
I like how he basically has a good 2-beat of people believing him. I think that the third not believing him completes the 3, and we just haven't gotten there yet. That's what I think.
Okay.
But the other, I'll mention this. Never has Maine felt so much like Ohio to me.
Well, I mean, my friend hasn't actually been physically attacked by demons, not in a long time. There was an incident when he was young. There was an incident when he was younger when there was physical manifestations, but weird stuff keeps happening to him, and he lives in Maine. And I'm just like, is this like normal in Maine? Is this why Stephen King is the way he is?
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Is Maine at the northern tip of the Appalachian Mountains? I can't remember how far.
Yeah, the Appalachian Mountains end in Maine. Yeah,
they end in Maine.
Appalachia, of course it is.
So.
I was surprised me if there was a lot of supernatural tied to that area.
So he said Keanu Reeves. Who are you picturing, Ian? I'm curious.
I'm picturing my friend.
Your friend, right? Okay. See, I immediately went to Michael Cera.
Well, the reason why I jumped to the
Scott Pilgrim versus the World, that guy.
Oh, him.
Yeah,
okay.
Michael Cera. I went to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason why I jumped to the Keanu Reeves version of Constantine is because that Constantine is a lot less magic than the original comic Constantine.
Right.
The original comic Constantine has a ton of like magical spells that he casts. He's got the summoning. He summons him, like he does summoning himself. He has all kinds of this like magical stuff that's very obviously magic. In the movie Constantine, he's more of like a he does some thaumaturgy, but not a lot. Most of his demon fighting is with an ash baseball bat. And you said demons don't like ash. In the movie, he melts down a bunch of gold crosses and makes them into slugs for a shotgun. He uses holy water. It's more of like it's less of a he's less of a wizard, I feel like, in the Constantine, like in Keanu Reeves' Constantine. He's less of a wizard and more of like a witcher, a fighter, but has knowledge on what the demon's weaknesses are. Maybe a ranger if we're doing D&D classes, because he does. Yeah. When he does do spells, he's got like a tattoo on his arm that he has to put together. It's not him really casting a spell. It's a thing on him that he can activate. It's a spell component, like activation component, rather than him going boogity, boogity, boogity.
That's a technical term.
For the impromptu guitar solo.
Listen, it happened when I said boogity, boogity, boogity. I'm claiming ownership of that.
You summoned Metallica. Okay,
yeah. Alex, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, do you mind if I try something with this mic?
Not at all.
For a second.
Are you working?
You might get a bunch of wind noise.
Okay, we'll see.
Okay, try that.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me better?
Yes, a lot actually.
Dad, can you speak?
Good.
Yeah.
Can you hear Dad?
Hear him. Yeah, we sure can.
Sweet, fantastic.
You gotta speak.
How about now?
Turn toward the mic, but yeah, we can hear him. We can hear
How about now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay.
Still the same.
Good to be with you.
Good to be with you too. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Welcome to the nerdy chaos.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. So, Yeah, that was really funny, and I had a lot of fun with that. And it's totally your thing. You've got and it's not so much barbarian to me as it is like you really do the I'm just the dude thing, but I also happen to be blah blah blah. Like that's what Walter is. Yeah. Right? That's what when you do the urban fantasy thing, it's very very genuine. Um it feels incredibly genuine. I think that's partly the area you live in, that's partly just your attitude. You have this very like rock and roll approach to supernatural fun, fantasy stuff. And I've always appreciated that. Even your Emrys stuff has an Indiana Jonesy vibe, So not just cuz Sean Connery, but just the whole thing.
I agree with everything Joshua said. I would also add, regarding the police officer believing him, I chalked up the two people believing him. His sister knows him and has heard the stories, and so obviously she believes him. The police officer was at the end of his shift and just wanted to go home. That's how I read it, at least.
The thing is, a lot of the stories about demonic possession and witchcraft and whatnot, I read from cops.
Yep.
Or police people that were prison guards or county sheriffs or whatever. They were on podcasts or documentaries that they did interviews, and they say, yeah, this stuff is real. I can't really explain it, but it's real. And they were cops. They what they saw. So I figure, it would be cool if he had like a cop friend who believed him. So that's kind of going with that. His boss, I was going to include a scene with his boss, and I think I will now, where his boss flatly just does not believe him. His coworker, who's a pagan, believes him, and that's not really good, but at least somebody does. Somebody at work believes him.
Alrighty then. Well, who wants to be next or has something to say in another direction? It doesn't have to be sharing. It can be topic. Up to y'all. TK?
Well, she picked her head up. I assume she wanted to talk next.
Are you wanting to? I was just saying, are you wanting to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If somebody else wants to go first.
I'll go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do it.
Okay, so I finished.
Let's get all the good people out of the way first.
Agreed.
Although, before we go on too quickly, what are you guys doing, Alex?
We are attempting to dig a root cellar.
Okay,
Are you guys getting feedback whenever you talk?
No.
Not really.
Discord's doing its job.
Brilliant.
Hallelujah. Okay. Root cellar. Cool.
Yep. Go ahead, TK, when you're ready.
Okay, since I finished the section that I was reading to you before, I'm moving on to a different section, which is actually positioned earlier in the book. I only did the section I did because I thought it would be more interesting to you guys. I was able to work on this in the intervening time, and it's much more interesting now. Let me up here. Okay, this is from the perspective of my main character, Seraphina. She, Seraphina, rose and shook off her sleepiness. Putting her medallion on, I should have explained that earlier, my bad, but she has a special medallion that is basically the elvish equivalent of a cross necklace. She picked out her clothes for the day. A little circle skirt over leggings and a long sleeve top printed with daisies and mushrooms. She paired it with her mushroom beret, did her makeup, and set out for breakfast. At the door she paused, then grabbed Fingal's brooch to tuck in her coat. The breakfast table was lively as usual. Bearing in mind Seraphina has 6 other sisters and one of them is married. He's the magical seventh. Her brother-in-law, Steve, sat near her father, looking tired. Morning, Steve. Rough night? Morning, Sarah. Yeah, very rough night. More vandalism down at the old mall. We think it's a bunch of teenagers playing at being wizards. I'll never know what made them decide to open a mall of all things besides Lake Albion. Beside Lake Albion, excuse me, said Rachel, her mother. That lake's been messed up for ages. Or that Swampy's place? Said Celeste. Ugh, those robots gave me the creeps, said Sarah. How are those supposed to make kids happy again? I don't know, but that whole mall has been a fool's errand at the time and a taxpayer-funded boondoggle ever since, groused Patrick from behind the newspaper. Patrick is her father. Sarah went and grabbed her cereal and came back to the table. Why don't they just push it in? Asked Uriel. Legal limbo and disposal costs, Patrick groused. The developer promised the sun, the moon, and all the stars in their courses, and still does, for a hunk of land by a polluted lake and a mall that has an unstable foundation. Oh, that's why it closed, said Sarah. Yeah, the foundation's no good on one end of the building. There's a sinkhole, possibly an old salt mine. It was fine when the mall was built, but the influx of trucks and stuff wore away at it little by little. Which is the thing that actually happened around here. There came a knock at the door. Patrick got up and opened it. Oh, Fred, come in. A short young man with curly brown hair entered the room. It was Seraphina's cousin Bartholomew, Fred Durf, O'Reilly. Fred was older than Sarah by a few months, and they had always been the best of friends. He had eschewed his normal bright-colored clothes for black pants, a black and white striped shirt, and a black beret. Hey, Fred, called Sarah. Hey, Sarah, running a little late? I had a bad night. Fred sat astride a nearby extra chair and leaning his chin on the back. We're having a lot of those. It's fine. I'll be fine, said Sarah quickly. Nobody, Fred especially, dared question the statement. Patrick opened his mouth to ask a question, but his wife shook her head. When she was ready to talk, she would. Sarah finished her cereal and stood up. You better book it or we'll miss the bus. See you later today, Sarah. I love you, said Rachel. Love you too, Mom. Fred and Sarah struck down the street towards the church. They both carried backpacks and had on light jackets. We really ought to talk about what happened more, said Fred. I can't. Mom and Dad would be destroyed. They freaked the heck out when they saw my scars. Well, wouldn't you? I mean, look at your poor hands. Fred, you don't get it. If I talk about it, Dad might try to keep me from going back. Why? The other fairy people are good, right? Yes, but Dad seems suspicious of all magical beings. I wish he could meet Fingal, or even just see the other world. Then he'd understand. Up over the hill they climbed, passing the Evermore door on their way. The door swung open. The pair jumped back in surprise. A large, powerfully built form in a dark blue hoodie exited the door. That was only you, Boris, said Sarah, relieved. Morning, my lady, he said, hiding his face. What are you doing here? To chop wood in the dark. Well, that makes sense. Boris reached up to a patch in his hoodie and said, I still have not come up with the magic word yet. A ripple of gold washed across the fabric, then disappeared. Glamour spell, Boris said by way of explanation. Neat. Sarah turned to her cousin. Boris, this is my cousin Fred. Fred, this is Boris. Fred Durf, pleased to meet you. Fred Durf. It's the same forwards as it is backwards. Boris shrugged. Wherever floats your boat, I guess. Aren't you guys going to be late for the bus? Oh, jeez. Come on, Fred. Sarah started running down the hill with Fred right behind. Oi, watch your step, you two. If anything happens to you, Lord Prettyboy will kill me. Boris hollered down after them. Oh, they're gone. I'll get some work done, then report to Dad. Seraphina and Fred arrived at the bus stop just in time. They quickly climbed aboard and caught their breath. The bus driver looked at them in his mirror. Running late, kids? Yeah, Shlomo, plainted Sarah. We ran into a friend. Ah, well, I'm glad you made it. Fred opened his backpack and pulled out a hard-shell makeup case. He crossed his legs into the tailor position and balanced the case in his lap. He opened it, flipped the mirror up, and began applying thick white grease paint to his face. Other people climbed onto the bus, staring in fascination, horror, curiosity, and some with disgust. Sarah glared at these people. Hey, you've never seen a man apply makeup before? Everyone immediately snapped their eyes front and looked at the windshield. Wasn't that a little rude, Sarah? Asked Fred, applying his eyeliner. Well, they were rude first. Fred painted teardrops under his eyes, then applied lip liner. Now, before Mind Block comes into play, do you need me to stick around until the theater opens? Sarah shook her head. Nah, I want to be alone for a while. I had a bad dream. That explains the attitude. Fred applied dark red lip paint, then cleaned his hands and put his makeup kit away. He tapped Sarah on the shoulder and gestured to his face. You look great, Fred. Hold on, your beret. He adjusted his cap. There, that's better. Marcel will be proud. Fred gave a thumbs up as the bus came to a stop. He followed the mine's code to the letter. No talking until the makeup was off. I think I'll pause there because I need to do some more rewriting after that.
Fred is not nearly silly enough.
Yes, I know that Fred is not nearly silly enough.
Fred is the most ridiculous character that she ever created, and he's based on, if anyone has seen Mork and Mindy, he's based on Mork. He's very heavily based on Robin Williams, and in this scene he seems almost somber.
I see.
Go ahead. Your Scooby-Doo story from several broadcasts back, is that the beginning of this book, or is that another book that you have that's set in the same universe?
It was going to be the beginning of this book, yes, but a lot of changes happened between deciding that and now, so it's going to be the beginning of the next book over. So it's going to be like a 2-part series. So
Either way, I approve, because I loved that story, and hearing it referenced here made me look up and go, wait, what? These are part of the same universe? What?
Yeah,
I love it.
I'm like foreshadowing what's going to happen there, here.
Okay. Makes sense.
Because I don't have any context for that kind of techno horror in the original book, so I'm going to have to set that up a little bit more slowly than I had originally planned.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Makes sense. Well, I am absolutely here for it.
Well, thank you.
Brendan, do you have anything?
I mean, y'all saw the animations that I was working on, doing the animation equivalent of scales, but doing bouncing balls. Eventually, I'm going to I'll probably become a Patreon supporter for like $5 a month of a guy who does animation, and that way I can hop into the Discord and I can basically bombard them with questions. But I do have something that I wrote a while ago, if that's okay. It was back when I was doing the yeah, okay, Brendan, good job. When I was doing the fever.
I want to hear what you have to say and have what you have on. I was saying, did you have anything for TK though? I don't want to rush
TK.
Past.
No.
It's okay.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. TK's thing. I really like your narrative cadence. And what I mean by that is both in terms of your sentence cadence changing and length and your wit is great, throwing in like humor just in appropriate points. I can't name one right now, but I'm thinking back to the banter during the last Broodcast when they were doing the fight with the Baba Yaga hut. Like a lot of that was funny. But like even here, there's a consistency between your fight scenes, your dialogue scenes, your all that. You've really nailed down a good cadence for. I'm using the word cadence. I'm not sure if that's the right one for both sentence length and also just for the amount of exposition required before dialogue. You don't say too much. You don't over describe. You give the exact amount people need to be able to understand what's going on. You obviously had to give a little extra as anecdotes to us so that we knew who the characters were. I didn't count that because that's not a part of what you're writing. I don't want to, like, I have to really stretch to find something I don't like.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say that to sound like a suck up or anything, but it's like I can't. I'm not that great a writer, and so I don't know how to quantify anything I don't like. And frankly, your stuff is so enjoyable that it's just like, yeah, let's give me more. Give. I want your book.
To me. Yeah, to me, it's a.
Have you bought her book?
Have you bought her book?
I have not. No, I want to, but I need to find it first.
Okay, go find the
book.
Amazon.
The link in the group chat. Do it right now.
Yes, please.
There is a place in the Brood. There is a place in the Discord server.
Now. Yeah.
For sharing your project.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the Brood chat on Facebook too. Just put it both places.
All right.
Put it everywhere. Everywhere.
Joshua doesn't care.
Absolutely.
Look at him. He doesn't care.
Absolutely. Always share, guys. You know that.
Yeah.
I share enough.
In the Discord server, it's Chapter 3 projects, publish works.
Aha.
Yep.
I also have physical copies that you can order directly from me and have them autograph if you like. So
that sounds like a plan.
Instead of getting it on Amazon.
Yep.
That sounds like a great plan. We'll figure that out.
Yep.
Later.
All right.
But yeah, so I was gonna say,
being a promoter.
I love you've got a very you have this comforting mix of Buffy, Disney Channel cartoons like Disney Toon Studios, and like Pixar, like all kind of like latter Pixar, I would say. Not so much former Pixar, but latter Pixar, like Onward and that kind of stuff before they went woke, but you know, after a lot of the initial kind of things. And I get just that it feels like a Goofy movie vibe wise. It feels like, you know, it's just this comforting thing for me. It's not all the way to the cheesy level of like, you know, your Hannah Montanas and your Disney like goofy, you know, sitcoms, right? It's not quite to that.
That's amazing.
That yeah, it's not to that kind of level, but it does. The dialogue reminds me a lot of, for some reason, Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, and I cannot put my finger on as to why. But just the way the characters talk with each other and the pacing, it just feels like Buzz Lightyear of Star Command to me, and it feels very comfortable. Like all the pace that Brendan's been talking about, the cadence as he put it. It just feels very comfortable. You know, I feel like I'm in for an adventure, but I feel like I'm also in a cozy room reading the adventure as opposed to going through all the ordeals.
Did any of you guys ever read any of Frank Peretti's work aside from his obvious stuff, Piercing the Darkness, This Present Darkness?
I read the Cooper Kids.
Okay. I've not read that. But everything that I've read of his, whenever I'm describing it to people, recommending it, I say that he writes in a very cinematic style where you can see the film playing out before your eyes without thinking very hard at all. I feel something very similar can be said about your work. It's very cinematic. I can see exactly what the shots are, where you're cutting, where you're editing, the angles, and all that type of stuff. So I very much like that style.
Thank you.
Alrighty, Brendan, you want to jump back into where you left off?
Yeah, now that I feel awkward about misunderstanding the question.
That's okay, you're tired.
Sure.
You had babies choosing to give you happy messages at inopportune times.
Yes. So this was back when I was doing the fever dream of making an entire universe for a miniature war game. It's another flash fiction. I don't think I've shared this. I hope I haven't shared this, but I really don't think I have. If I have already, well, tough luck. Because I don't have anything else because I've been animating and or flying to and from Florida and or editing podcasts for Alabama. So welcome to my life.
Sweet
all right.
home Alabama.
Oh, you did that.
A side note, when I mentioned That's So Raven, just this is a random tangent. I didn't know the show That's So Raven, and so every time I heard it, I thought Raven from Teen Titans. Completely wrong character.
I want to see.
I assume that would be a better show.
I too assumed that it would be a better show.
I want to see that show.
I am not writing that show.
Warner Brothers, get on it.
All right. So, I'm just going to jump right in because you don't get content. This is, I wrote, or the context I will give is this is what I wrote as the introduction to one of the factions. It's a little, I was going to make a story, a short flash fiction for each faction. And so this incidentally takes place in the same world as the Mushroom People, so warned. Vartan looked out over the Trollkin camp, his eyes slowly scanning over the sheer number of campfires. He knew that they outnumbered them at least 20-1, realistically more than that when they took the Dark Trolls into account. The generals of the Iconian Empire and the Confederation of Irenia would call a direct assault suicide. The best course of action would be to bombard them from range, weakening their forces, and lead them on a running battle into a choke point. They were all cowards. A strange sucking sound, followed by a squelch and a pop, occurred behind him, but Vartan didn't bother to look. He knew what that was. "Got any bright ideas?" the gnome weird asked. His high-pitched nasally voice only fit his wrinkly bearded face because of his size, or lack thereof. Vartan was used to this, however, and was long past finding his useful friend's voice annoying. "If we hit them hard, carving through the camp, we should be able to do enough damage and cause enough chaos to make things easier." He pointed, tracing a route through the camp. "We can keep moving, kill quickly, but don't stop long enough to let them pile in." His thumb ran along the axe that hung at his side. "Reckless, wild, high risk, probably involving death." Gnome clapped his hands. "You really do like putting on a show." Vartan allowed himself a small smile at the compliment. "That said, you are missing a piece." Vartan looked at the gnome, raising an eyebrow. It was enough of a question for the excitable little creature. "There are hags in the center of the camp." The gnome pointed out one of the larger tents in the middle. "They've been sacrificing and chanting since setting up camp. Whatever they are thinking of doing, it's probably big." Vartan growled. He hated hags. Trolls were strong by themselves, but give them magic and a nasty cunning and it only made them worse. "How many?" The gnome paused for a moment, tapping his chin as he thought. "I think I counted 9. Vartan's head jerked around. 9? This was bad. 1 hag was dangerous. 2 were a nightmare. 9 would make an open battle impossible. He knew he needed to rethink his strategy. "That said," the gnome interrupted his strategizing, "the tent next to theirs is where they keep a lot of their alchemical reagents. They even have a cauldron there." The gnome's eyes flashed with excitement. "I'm sure an unfortunate accident could be arranged." Vartan looked at the small bearded creature. The gnome was small and not very strong, but their cunning was their most dangerous element. Give them magic, and well, let's just say that gnome spellcasters weren't called weirds for nothing. He allowed himself a smile. "So we need to adjust our path."
The gnome grinned. His mouth was missing some teeth, but it still somehow looked oddly menacing. Get me close, and I'll give them something to think about. You won't have to worry about your way out as much. Vartan nodded. He jerked his head back down the hill toward his troops. The gnome followed him down. As he arrived, he was greeted by Molkar, a great white tiger. He pushed the head affectionately, scritching it behind the ears as it pushed its head into his hand. He looked up at the group. Men from various tribes stood by, feeding and preparing their mounts. Some rode giant wolves. Some rode aurochs. Others had chosen tigers. All these beasts were theirs, and each was cared for and was trained for war. Men, beyond that hill lies the Troll Blood camp. They do not know we are here, so we have the advantage. Hit hard, hit fast. Follow the column, cut through. If you are separated, do not stop till you are clear of the camp. Jordan, take your forces to the south. When you hear our horn, charge in. Do not blow your battle horn until you are in the camp. He took a deep breath, and then he struck his fist against his chest. Glacier Barach! Glacier Barach, the men responded, speaking with conviction, but not shouting to make sure their element of surprise was maintained. Vartan took his force and moved down the hill, swiftly and quietly. Just before the camp, he paused to make sure that his troops were with him. Then, silently, he gave the signal to charge. The Haldarian beast riders swept through the Trollkin camp. They took them by surprise, and their casualties were minimal. The Trollkin were in disarray, and though the camp still existed when the night was done, Vartan's forces had dismantled their advance and fought with valor, honor, and ferocity. Their home was threatened, and they knew that they had to bring the fight to the enemy, because they were not cowards. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
I'd first say...
Yeah!
We'll start with that. Secondly, Vartan is a badass name.
I like it. I came up with it. I like it.
I like the gnome. The
gnome's hilarious. I love that guy.
Are the Trollkin like? Does that mean that they're troll-like? Okay.
Yeah, basically. They're Trollkin. Trollkin is the broad term for trolls. All trolls are Trollkin, and you have different breeds of trolls. But within trolls, there is another group called Trollkin that are like not baby trolls, but they're the short trolls.
Oh, okay.
They're basically orcs, but not.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
Goblins.
That makes sense. Okay, so world building solid as usual. That's your thing. My world building is like, yeah, wouldn't it be cool if there were dragons? And then
and then there were dragons. But see, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
There are little details of world building that I still haven't worked out.
But the thing is, you come at it with such energy. Like, that's the thing with Ian versus, like, all of the energy that Brendan just put into his narration is like how you write your characters. You see what I'm saying, Ian? Like, you write your characters the way Brendan performs them. and
so what you're saying is Brendan should be reading Ian's audiobooks.
Well, no, because I do that, but yeah, no, like, Brendan's great at that. But the thing that I'm trying to get at is they both have their strengths in these crazy ways. Brendan, I thought that, like he said, world building is so great, but you come at characters the way he comes at the world, where it's like, and then there's a troll who's like, or not a troll, what was it, a gnome who's just like,
yeah.
Right? It's not like we need to know his backstory or anything. Right? It's not like we need to know his deep and crazy motivations, or like even have much attitude outside of he's a clown, you know?
You know who he reminds me of?
Shmebulov.
He reminds me of Vizzini from The Princess Bride.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And a little bit of Quark.
I didn't even think of Vizzini, but yeah, that you're not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So context, like I wanted a cavalry faction because I like cavalry, and like I was pulling from all sorts of different like things, and so I was like, oh, I know in this one game called RuneQuest, which is a D&D offshoot sort of, they have this land called Glorantha, and in Glorantha, everyone's riding some weird animal. I had a Gloranthan who rode a rhinoceros, because rhinoceros cavalry are very terrifying. You know? So it's like I had that idea. And then I'm like, all right, what goes with this? Barbarians. All right, cool. Now, how do I make the barbarian riding beasts faction a little more interesting? I know, they made an alliance with garden gnomes. Who are from the Feywild. And here's and like I had this idea. I don't know, I might have to make it custom built. But I want the bear cavalry to be like 3 gnomes riding 1 bear.
I love it.
Because that sounds funny to me. But yeah, no, I like.
I'm picturing. I'm picturing Conan the Barbarian with a dwarf. That's great.
The gnome doesn't even come up to Vartan. Like, he barely comes up to Vartan's knee. Because Vartan's like 6 foot something or whatever. You know, because he's this big barbarian guy. And it's like the gnome is just like, hi, I'm this tall. You know. Whatever. Wearing a red cone hat and blue coat.
Yep.
And teleporting with this horrible sound that's like a sucking squelch pop.
Good stuff, man. I think that you underestimate your writing. I really do. I think that you have far better an idea of what you're doing than you think you do. It just gets lost when you start expanding into novel territory. I think your flash fiction is fantastic, and it's just an organizational thing for you, and you might not like. This is the other thing. I like jumping into a million things, as everyone knows. And it's just what I like to do. But you may not like writing novels, and I'm not telling you to write novels because you're good enough to write novels. What I'm saying is don't underestimate your writing ability, because I think it's a lot better than you think it is. And that doesn't mean that you have to go all the way in this direction with it. I'm saying rely on it where you can, because it's better than you think it is. For your animation, for whatever you go into, etc., you know how to tell a story, and your words are not as disjointed as you think they are.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think that part of the issue is that we want to, or like, it's always the self-comparison, right? We always compare ourselves to the, who are better than us, because that's what we read. And so, or more experienced than us. And it's like, of course he's better. He's more experienced. But like over the course of like middle through college and even beyond college,
I never really delved deep into any one particular discipline, but I got a wide variety of discipline. So I'm pretty good at drawing. I'm pretty good at writing. I'm learning animation and picking that up quickly. I'm okay at music composition / arrangement. But I'm only okay at a wide variety of things because I haven't taken the time to really sing, which is, I think, where the flash fiction helps me, because I can have my lightning strike of inspiration, write down something that's really good, and then once it's done, I don't go past that.
Right, yeah. Because
it's done.
It doesn't collapse under the weight of itself.
There we go. That's a good phrase.
Yeah.
A good phrase. That's a good phrase. Wow.
Knowledge.
Alex, you were wanting to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say something. Jumping off of what Joshua said about not underestimating yourself. I remember whenever you did your story of the magic user who was scrying on the enemy encampment.
Yeah.
The only big criticism that Joshua had for you was that you didn't describe things well enough, and you were definitely describing things in this story, but the more Spartan description, I think, fit a lot better with this with this section of your world than it did there.
Right.
Because of focusing on the barbarians. So I think that actually worked incredibly well here. Just focusing on the bare essentials, and that worked incredibly.
Yep.
Cool.
I wholeheartedly agree. Because your other story was focused around sensory experiences, whereas this one was centered around, it doesn't matter, rock and roll. That's what the vibe I got off of it. Yeah, exactly. So, Ian, what were you gonna say?
To go along with what Joshua was saying, I reference Robert E. Howard a lot because he was a big influence on me, but he built a big world for Conan the Barbarian, and he only wrote 2 novels, only one of which involved Conan. Lots and lots and lots of short stories. So, I mean, you don't have to write a novel with this. You can just tell little stories in this world. And
with how good you are at... I was just going to say, with how good you are at narration, and how big... I'm finally getting to a point where regular people are saying, oh yeah, I listen to XYZ podcast, whatever it is. Whereas, not even 3 years ago, people were like, podcast? I just don't understand that. Oh, technology. And so...
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Exactly. So, but yeah, did you hear what I said, or was that in earnest, or were you joking with me? I can't.
That was the jest of the technology.
Right. Exactly. Yes. So, but honestly, even doing flash fiction, I think flash fiction with podcasts with people who are really into their stuff is going to get big over time. Mine have just started to kind of take off, and I'm trying to figure out my timing as far as the amount of time I can spend on trying to get it out to all the platforms while I wait for YouTube to finally roll out RSS feeds and all the other nonsense, if they actually do it like they say they're going to, or if I need to just go through Anchor as well and do that whole thing. And then the question becomes, do I do an individual podcast for every one of my worlds and stories? That seems absolutely crazy. Or do I just invite everyone to listen to all the chaos? I don't know. But anyway, my point is that I think people are ready for this and they're looking for it, the flash fiction aspect, and that can fuel your animation, on down the line. So any which way, Alex, did you have something other than your hole?
I do. I do have something other than the hole.
I saw the thing fall and fling dirt into your face, and then I saw you fling the dirt out of the hole and you pose. And so
that was me trying not to fall that way.
okay.
There's been several times I've flung the dirt away and go, ah! So, yeah.
Gravity
That's been
works.
fun. Okay, so last time I read my Ruth story, or my Cinderella story, the prologue to that. This is one that I wrote quite a while ago, probably about a year and a half ago. But it is my world's version of the Book of Ruth, the story of Ruth. So, trying to find it. There we go. Trying to figure out where I'm going to... Okay, I'll stand. A bit long, so I apologize. A legendary tale from the westlands of Dracoan, the tale of Rasia. Archived by Matthias Peake, as recounted by Princess Rathna of the House Dracoan. During the time of the Fire Famine and the Mountain Wars, there lived a family called Ja Ashah in the city of Basnam. They were a family of farmers and were respected as they shared blood with the city's founders. The Ja Ashah family was led by a man called Eleniel and his wife Nari. Their fields had been burned by the Lords of the Mountains for several harvests in a row, and, being wise from his 40 years, Eleniel elected to move to the south of the Green Range, to Rosasor lands, in order to save his family from ruin. They settled a farm in the area now known as the Fire Plains, south of a town called Misra. Eleniel and his family worked their new soil for 3 years, and had greater success than they had seen for decades in Basnam. By this time, their sons, Malash, who was 21, and Killian, who was 20, were of marrying age, and began to take interest in some of the young women in Misra. Eleniel and Nari took notice of this and directed their sons to ask permission from the elders of Misra to court and marry into the city. In the past, the people of Rosasor lands did not have the same enmity towards the Dracoan as they do now, so the elders readily gave their blessing for the Ja Ashah boys to seek wives in their town. After a few months, Killian was enamored with a woman named Orana, who was the daughter of the local shopkeepers. Their courtship lasted 3 months and ended when Orana accepted his proposal on the eve of Harvest Festival. Killian worked for Eleniel over the harvest season and earned enough from his share of the purchase to purchase some land from him and build a modest house on that land. The day after midwinter, Killian and Orana were married. The ceremony took place in the town square where a structure, which the town called the marriage hall, had been temporarily erected. The wedding was quite unique, as the Rosa and Dracoan had different traditions for marriage, which were merged to form the ceremony. The vows and liturgy were taken from the Dracoan tradition, while the post-marriage celebration and festivities were taken from the Rosas. The Rosasor tradition was, and still is, to invite the entire town and the family of both the bride and the groom to celebrate the union for the week after the ceremony. And the situation here was no different. On the third day, a second cousin of Orana's arrived with his family. We know very little about him. Even his name has been lost this side of the Green Range, but we do know that he was married. He was a merchant, and he had 5 children, 4 of which traveled with him, whilst the 5th, eldest, stayed in their hometown to run his father's business. The 4 children, which were brought to the town, were named, from youngest to oldest, Teran, Enan, Deran, and Rasia. They were met by the bride herself at the edge of town and were introduced to the Ja Ashah family. On the 4th day, Malash and Rasia were sat beside each other for breakfast. They began speaking and didn't stop until lunch was served. By the time the celebration week had ended, a second wedding was set for the upcoming summer. Now, because Rasia's father traveled regularly, he left her in the care of his sister, Orana's mother. The wedding of Malash and Rasia took place on the day after the seating was finished. It was very different from the earlier wedding. It was a small, subdued affair, with only family and close friends being invited, and no large celebration afterwards. The ceremony took place in one of the outbuildings on Eleniel's farm. He spoke a few words, as did Nari and Killian. Malash and Rasia lived in Eleniel and Nari's house until after the year's harvest to save funds to purchase land from Eleniel. Yet again, the harvest was plentiful, and everyone who worked the fields made half a fortune. And Malash purchased land from his father as well. The Ja Ashah family lived happily in Misra for a few years, but it was not to last. 5 years after Orana and Killian were married, Eleniel died while working his field. And that was not the worst of it. After Eleniel was buried, Malash and Killian worked in their father's field to bring one final harvest before the land was sold. The Jawshaw brothers did not know until it was too late that the mountain wars were coming to an end, and the injured dragons were flying south to set their final blaze. Both brothers, the entire crop of the plains, half the trees of the greenwood, and thousands of forest-dwelling Rosasaur were burned in the dragonfire that day. Nari was a true woman of Dracoan, and took responsibility for her daughters upon herself. She, with the permission of Arana and Rasia, sold the scorched land which had previously belonged to her sons, and they used the meager profits to purchase enough food to last the winter. They planned to at least try to plant crops the next spring, but that was not to be. Fearing for the safety of the women, the elders of Misra decided to offer to purchase the estate of Elenial for the price which it would have sold for after the last harvest, on the condition that the Ja'ashaw family would not return to the plains of Misra for 70 years, lest certain elements of the town, who thought that having a Dracoan family in their midst brought the devastation, would attack them. Nari saw that her family was in danger and decided to take them back to Basnam. As the women gathered their belongings into the cart, Nari thought to herself, "If my daughters come to Basnam, they will have nothing. They will be outsiders from the town. They will have to beg as widows." She made up her mind that her daughters would not come with her. After they moved their possessions into the cart, she took Rasia and Arana aside and said to them, "My daughters, please, there is nothing for you in Basnam. Please return to your father's house. If you stay here, you can remarry. You will lead good lives in the cities of your birth." Arana took her mother's words to heart and began to think about what she said. Though she was unsure of the path which lay before her, she joined her voice to Rasia's, and they said that they would not leave her. They embraced Nari, loaded themselves into the wagon, and set off on their trek towards the Dracoan borders. Nari drove the wagon through Misra, hoping that Rasia and Arana would change their minds and stay with their family. They arrived at Arana's father's house and broke fast. When they were finished eating, Nari once again implored them to remain in their homeland. Arana heard her mother-in-law and decided that staying in Misra was the best decision for her. Rasia took her mother aside and said to her, "Mother, these people, Arana, her parents, they are my cousins, but you are my mother. I was born into their family, but I chose to join yours. I made a covenant that I would be part of your family. I will not break that promise. Where you lead, I will follow. Anywhere from the peaks of the Dragon Range to beyond the boiling seas, where you settle, there will I. May the Lord of Armies strike me down if I do not do so." Nari saw that Rasia would not be swayed and embraced her daughter. They bade farewell to Arana and set forth once again. For a week they traveled, making camp in the wagon each night. During the day they moved towards the border and saw the utter destruction which the lords of the mountains had caused. The ground was blackened by smoke. And smoke still rose from the forest to their east, and ash filled the air. In the afternoon of the 7th day, Nari and Rasia arrived in the outskirts of Basnam. The people of the town were out in their fields preparing to take in the wheat harvest. When they saw the soot-stained wagon heading by the way, they paused their work and watched the two women. By the time they made it to the town wall, there was a large group of friends and family waiting to welcome them. Nari went before the council of the city and asked to receive the land that Elenial had entrusted to the city when they left. After much debate, the council returned possession of the house to Nari, but did not give her any of the land. The land was to be held in trust of the city until an heir was either of age or someone was appointed to tend the land. Nari fought bitterly for the land, but the council ruled against her 7-5 to 1. She and Rasia began to get their newly returned house in order and made plans for their future. I have the next section as well if you would like me to read that, but I can stop there.
What are y'all's thoughts?
Oh gosh. I like how you have it written like a chronicler. I like that a nephew showed up whose name isn't maybe
Say
not
what?
nephew. I like there was a guy who showed up to the wedding and no one remembers who somehow.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, yeah. That's historically accurate.
Thank you. Whenever I read through my Cinderella story last time, you said that it sounded kind of like I was adopting a biblical tone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like sounding like the Bible. This is me actively trying to copy a biblical tone.
It
This
also
is me trying to copy the tone of the story of Ruth.
Right. It also reminds me of it has a little bit, but not quite as far into the silly realm of Oliver Pembroke of Pembroke's Creaturepedia from the Wingfeather saga. Yeah. It has a little bit of that whimsy.
You gotta go all the way, write it in King James English. I'm not even kidding. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
One of my favorite novels is written in 17th century English.
Yeah.
Which one?
I did not grow up reading the King James, so that specific type of language does not come naturally to me.
Which novel?
Yeah.
I can remember the name of it. Oh, what's the name of it? The Well at the World's End.
I've heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
It influenced C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. It is long, but it is very rich.
What was it written around the same time as Dumas?
It was written... See, it's written in 17th century English, but it was actually written around 1890-something.
William Morris?
Yeah, that's the one.
Gotcha. Yeah, 1896.
A lot of people criticized him for using archaic English in his work, but I don't know. It lends it authenticity. It's a medieval romance.
You said he wrote it in 1896?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That checks out. Alexander Dumas was writing. He wrote his. He died. Alexander Dumas died in 1870, and he wrote Count of Monte Cristo, The Three Musketeers. Mm-hmm. Basically, all these obscenely long books that are that were because he got paid by the word. So he crammed in as many words as he could in them. So
I can't imagine a more dangerous and awful use of money than paying an author by the word.
That explains Victor Hugo too.
Yeah, I was gonna say Victor Hugo. Did he do War and Peace as well?
That's Dostoevsky.
Dostoevsky.
Yeah.
Excuse
no,
me.
That's Tolstoy.
Oh, Tolstoy. Sorry, one of those Russian guys.
Yeah. When I think of long books, I specifically think of is it Les Miserables? Is Victor Hugo?
Les Mis, yeah.
Yeah, I think of Les Miserables, and then I think of War and Peace. Like when I think of like obscenely long books.
Anna Karenina, Brothers Karamazov. Yeah. The Russians, man.
But yeah.
Also, they didn't have TV back then, so...
Getting back on topic...
Save your second half for next time, Alex.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
On one level, I liked that you were writing it as a chronicler and leaning into that whole Bible thing. On another level... as a reader and somebody who listens to a lot of audiobooks, I also thought it was, and please don't take this too personally, but I thought it was kind of boring.
Okay.
Not the story, but the way that you were telling it, I thought could use to be spiced up a little bit. But if that's your style, if that's the style you want to write it in, who am I to say?
See, I disagree. For me, I wouldn't be able to read this probably, but I could totally listen to somebody reading it, even with the tone that he had, or with the lack of inflection lack of
voices.
Lack of voices, there we go.
Yeah, that's really what it was.
I could totally have this on in the background while I'm doing something else.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that means I probably wouldn't be paying attention too close. But but even if I was sitting down and actually deciding to relax and put this on, this is the kind of thing where it's like, oh, I could totally listen to this for a while.
This is accomplishing its goal, is your point.
Yeah, I think
it's I have to separate my subjective experience listening to it or reading it to what is actually there. And my subjective experience is that I found it boring, but objectively it was good.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
But
yeah. I am a world builder. I am first and foremost a world builder and not a writer. So, this is very conscientiously a in-world document of Matthias Peak trying to chronicle the folk stories and legends of the various realms of Kuralta. And that's the style that I'm going for. And I'm well aware that that doesn't work for everybody.
Okay.
It's better than the Silmarillion.
Better than the Silmarillion? No, it's not.
It's not better than what's in.
It's
not better than what's in the Silmarillion. I'm saying both Tolkien's. I'm seeing J.R.R. and Christopher have a very dry way of writing in-world documents. That if you're talking about a boring in-world document to listen to, I have a hard time getting through listening to the Silmarillion or any other ones. However, I can enjoy them when I'm actively paying attention or actively reading them. That's something that I have enjoyed, and I'm not saying that the stories in them are bad. They're fantastic. I mean, Tolkien, both of them are amazing, but I'm saying I enjoy the experience of your in-world documents far more than I do Tolkien's in-world documents, if that makes any sense.
Thank you. Yeah. The Silmarillion to me is really just the Akalabeth and the Ainulindale, and then a bunch of other stuff in between those two.
A bunch of elves doing elf things.
Yeah, just a bunch of random stuff about the elves in between the Ainulindale, which is one of the greatest works of fiction that I've ever read. Like, I will just read that one out loud to people randomly because it's so good. And because that's the type of person that I am. I annoy people.
Brendan's laughing. He's like, "You freaking nerd."
No, I'm imagining Alexander walking through the streets of some city in Oklahoma and going, "Hey, listen to this," and just reading the Eidolon. A random stranger.
Yes.
In the beginning, there was Eru, the one who in Arda is called Ilúvatar, and he existed before naught else was made.
I want you to I'm imagining him knocking on someone's door like a Jehovah's Witness and just being like, "Hello, can I speak to you about Eru Ilúvatar?"
Can I speak to you about the Lord and Savior of our fiction world?
Man.
Basically. Can I baptize your imagination really quickly?
No, but I think that especially it doesn't surprise me that Ian is not a fan of this, given what he writes.
Right.
Both of the things that I have heard him write, between the pizza delivery Constantine, not Constantine, and the werewolf paranormal detective, definitely not the Dresden Files. He writes like a blockbuster action movie.
Right.
Yep.
And Alexander writes like a documentary.
Alexander writes like something that would be told to children in a side scene in Downton Abbey.
Or some, yeah, and so it's like, yeah, Ian doesn't like it, or not doesn't like it. Ian found the
I found the prose dull.
He found the prose not as exciting,
right?
But of course he didn't.
Right, exactly.
Because he's living in blockbuster action Expendables movie land.
He is Michael Bay, but better.
It gives me to hear you say that.
Do you have a Chuck Norris joke in any of your books?
Not yet.
I like the yet.
My favorite Chuck Norris joke is that he was born in the cabin that he built with his bare hands.
See, This is a stupid one. My favorite Chuck Norris joke is that Chuck Norris can eat one potato chip.
That's a good one.
My favorite one is that Chuck Norris is so fast that he can run around the world and smack himself in the head.
Chuck Norris died 20 years ago. Death just hasn't worked up the courage to tell him.
Good stuff. Good stuff. You can tell a lot about a person by their favorite Chuck Norris joke.
That's the true personality test. Forget Myers-Briggs, forget Enneagram. It's the Chuck Norris joke personality test.
Oh boy. I really love recursive logic jokes. There's one that is it was like Spanish people. Okay, so I heard this. Some people were talking about curses. Okay, so like bad language kind of stuff, whatever. And he was talking about how creative people in Spanish get with curses in general. And I'll do a G-rated version of this, but basically, there was this guy who was like yelling at some sports game, and he's Spanish, and he basically said, I would beat you up, but I don't know if I'm your dad or not. I thought that was pretty good.
Diogenes, the cynic, said something similar.
Yes, exactly. Diogenes was something else.
Diogenes is the one who lived in a trash can, right?
Yeah.
He's literally Oscar the Grouch.
I was about to say, is that just Oscar the Grouch?
Can I tell my favorite Diogenes story?
Yes, please.
So my favorite Diogenes story is that when there was some famous like some famous like sophist or philosopher who one of the things that they were having a difficulty coming up with was a definition for man.
It was Socrates.
It was him. And he said, and this guy comes along and he comes like, a man is a featherless biped. And everyone applauded this guy because it's like the first working definition that they had for a man. These are philosophers. What do you expect? Diogenes proceeds to completely pluck a chicken naked, runs into the middle of the Parthenon, holds it up and yells, "Behold, a man!"
It's a great story.
They single-handedly changing the definition. Sorry, I ran all the way back here from trying to deal with a mouse issue to tell that story.
Oh, fun.
Also, I love the Broodcast. We went from telling stories to talking about stories to Chuck Norris jokes
to swinging kids around in the hole.
To swinging kids around in a hole. This is a great podcast.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
I should.
Yeah, go ahead.
I should take one of these days. I should take the podcast out gardening or something.
Yeah, that'd be great. I have wanted to go out and smoke during one of these, but the problem is someone has to record, and the more people I have on screen, the more like space is taken up, and we don't see each other as well in the final version. So I end up sitting at my desk every time, but it's okay. I'll sacrifice. I was going to mention, not something that I'm actively showing. I'm pretty sure Alex and Brendan have said that they've seen it. Have you guys seen my website redesign? I think it's by far my best so far. And Alex said it's extremely well organized now.
It is.
Chris liked it. I haven't actively looked at it yet.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun getting the kind of blurry candle in the background of the header to flicker and everything. Gives it a real vibe. But
derp.
Yep. But you people who are listening later on, they should definitely check that out if they get the chance. Is there anything we want to add before we end the actual recorded portion of the podcast, since we've got through everything and everything's running on good vibes now? It's a good time to wrap. Obviously, go get TK's book. Yeah, don't take wooden nickels. Gotcha. Get TK's book.
Oh, my book is coming out on the 31st of October.
Yes, I am excited for it.
Does the Ulrich Files?
Yes.
I'll have to pick that up.
Oh, excellent.
Yep.
Halloween and also Reformation Day.
Fantastic. Yep. Brendan, did you have anything you wanted to add before we wrap things? No?
I haven't actually published anything yet, so no.
We'll be ready when you do.
I am but a humble maker.
You got it, bro. You're moving along. You're not. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
wait,
Ian.
Wait.
Ian.
You should send that story to my magazine.
Logo Sophia. You need to send it to Logo Sophia, Brendan.
You should send it to Logo Sophia.
Okay.
Yep.
And you already have audio for it.
Yeah, technically. Yeah. So there you go.
I flubbed up once hard. If I'm going to do audio, I'm going to do it better.
Okay. Yeah, so check out Logo Sophia magazine, people listening. And Ian and TK, I'm gonna do the peer pressure thing. Positive peer pressure. I need to do a podcast for you guys. I need to record you. Come up with.
Talking about it. We talked about it this afternoon while we were walking the dog, and basically Chris was reticent about it because she thought that I would be doing it every week.
No,
and I said,
you don't need
no, who has time for that? No, it'll be a monthly thing. It's going to replace my monthly blog, which only about half of my less than half of my subscribers read anyway.
Right.
So, yeah, and of course you all are invited to be guests once we get that off the ground.
Sweet.
I'll have to talk with you after about podcasting mics.
Yep, and just give me a name and something to work with to create y'all a theme song unless you've got something in mind, and we'll get things moving. So be on the lookout for that, people.
Bagpipes.
For real. That's going to be awesome.
Involve bagpipes.
Yeah, there you go. Must involve bagpipes. I can do bagpipes with my little digital guy. Anyway, so everybody, be your family's bard. Do not turn to the right or to the left, and the Lord will be with you wherever you go, even into a hole in your backyard with shovels and siblings and all the other. We'll see you next time in the trenches on Poets at War and the Broodcast.
This is the Broodcast on Poets at War, Inkling-style Discord chat, last Friday of every month. To join, go to joshuadavidling.com and click the Discord link in the right-hand sidebar.